What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Ever wonder what it's like to be a part of an evil team for Pokémon? Sure, you can't actually run around committing crimes in the games, but you could always opt into using exclusively poison types. That'll make you feel like a grunt in no time. Or maybe a ninja if you wanted. The problem is that not every region has a good selection of poison types to make a decent enough team. Or maybe the layout of its challenges are just too much for your venomous squad to handle. So let's go through each of the games and see where might be the best to let you be as toxic as possible. So first of all, Hoenn is really terrible for this. Not only did they just introduce 5 new poison types, but literally the only thing you have before the first gym is a Wurmple, so you can probably squeeze out a Dustox by then, but against a bunch of rock types, it's not gonna be a good time. Especially since it's not like a Beautifly that learns Absorb, so it's pretty dire. At least you could get a Zubat by the second gym if you ever got there, but even though you can pick up 3 more teammates before Watson, they're not going to be able to do much against his steel types. So I kinda doubt that you'd ever be able to even get past the early stages of the game, but even if you do, you only get 2 new Pokémon after the 3rd gym for the rest of the game. You can hope that your Seviper does well enough against all of the other threats, but really it's not likely to work out all that well for you. No wonder there wasn't any poison-type specialist to speak of in Hoenn. However, not too far off is the Hisui region because they're similarly shackled for a lack of poison. Once again, only starting out with Wurmple, but not too far off you can get a Zubat. However, unless you're lucky enough to meet some ghosts in a space-time distortion, you'll have a team of 2 Pokémon that are both weak to Kleavor in order to leave this place, so I wouldn't bet on that working out for you. But if you can scrape by somehow, then you can immediately grab a Budew and a Ghastly if you hadn't already caught one, and then a bunch more actually in the Crimson Myrlands. If only just one of them had been in the last area, that would have been great. But that will help you against the Noble Lilligant, and then you can get some Water-type coverage to handle the Hisuian Arcanine as well. So Poison does get better as the game goes on, but it's just really hard to break out of that first area. Once again, poor Unova is down low. You know the drill. There's nothing before the first gym anyway, unless you're playing the sequels in which you could grab a Venipede, but in the regular games you don't come across one until after the second gym. At this point, you might as well pick a different type, because that Venipede will have to solo Berg, and then you can thankfully find a Trubbish near Nimbasa, so that's something, and hopefully you can get past Clay to go collect a Fungus, otherwise you'd be done for. And even then, you may still not make it. And really, you would be better off to go with Black and White, because there are a lot more possibilities before the Elite Four that could actually be useful to your team. However, this is not the place to try this element in general. Johto is kind of the start of the middle ground, because you can find a Spinarak right at the start, but also before facing the Violet City Gym, you can grab a Zubat and a Bellsprout. Not that a Bellsprout would be that much help against a Flying Gym or a Bug-type gym, but going to the Sprout Tower at night nets you a nice Ghost-type as well to help you with all of the normal types you'll face. But once you exhaust your options around National Park, you could always hope for a good bug-catching contest. There are precious few options throughout the rest of the game. So this is very front-loaded, but you could definitely make it work if you had to. Now, despite Kalos having an overall much better pool, it still starts out supremely narrow with only a Weedle for the first gym. And considering Viola has a flying type that resists Bug, even your strongest Twin Needle won't be all that useful. And that's even if you can reach level 10. However, if you can overcome this hurdle, you're immediately rewarded with a Budew just on the other side of the first gym, and by the time you reach Grant, you have multiple other counters to his rock types, and the version-exclusive Skrelp, by the way, and you've definitely got more than a full team by the 3rd gym. So they should have moved some of these Pokemon earlier to help you out with the start of the game. And then you average like 2 more teammates per milestone to create an amazing spread across the region. But that opening stage is such a slog that it's almost not worth even trying. Almost. It is really nice to have a great way to fight off those new fairy types. It surprised me to have the Sinnoh region up so high, but you can easily pop up above Jubilife to catch a Budew, and that'll be perfect to get you through the Orberg gym. And even get a Zubat too, even though it's worthless here, but it sure comes in handy for the grass-type gym that's next, along with the potential Dustox that you could get in the forest. And then once you learn Cut, you can backtrack to the old chateau to pick up a Ghastly, which is perfect for the fighting gym. It's like somebody who loves poison set this up on purpose to have some ideal picks before every landmark. Like you can get a Stunky before Fantina, or a Krogunk before Byron. I'm not saying that they're just waiting right next to the gym, but if you know where to look, you can get a surprisingly capable team, seemingly just when you need it. So go ahead and give Team Galactic a run for their money here. Next, I have to say the Galar region is pretty great. Now, you can't find any poison in the starting towns, but once you hit the wild area, you are more than likely going to find a Roselia or an Oddish, along with a Ghastly or Stunky, and some less common ones that you could still stumble over if you happen to spend enough time there. And I think even more if you poke around the higher level areas too. But honestly, the main reason it's so high is the Isle of Armor. Here you can collect almost a full team's worth before the first gym, including a Galarian Slowbro and a Bulbasaur, so you've got options to overwhelm opponents all the way up past the 5th gym pretty easily, especially with the amazing fan favorite Toxtricity being around. The reason that Galar can't go any higher is because the Crown Tundra doesn't really offer enough to justify going that far out of your way, but on the whole, Galar could definitely be a decent spot for the poison type. However, Paldea is even better. You begin by finding a Shroodle and Paldean Wooper near Los Platos, and even a Ghastly if you backtrack a little bit. That alone could probably get you past the first gym, but you can gather up a fair amount of them before the grass gym that's gonna wither away against your Venom. And since this game is so open, you can wander around for hours far and wide just to collect as many of the strongest poison types as you want. That's a great plus, but here the DLC has two halves that are useful, since both the Kitakami region and the Blueberry Academy have a number of Pokémon that you could use to fill out a poisonous team, especially highlighting the regional forms that you can scoop up later. But with the abundance of available Pokémon by the time you've faced your biggest threats, you really don't have that much to worry about, as you will have built a solid team. So I guess that means Alola gets to be number 2, which may be surprising to some, but just look at it. You can catch Spinarak Route 1, which is not nearly as helpless as a Ladybuzz, so that's great. But then before the first trial, you can not only find some Pokémon in the cemetery, but to me, the best option is at the trainer school with Alolan Grimer. The Dark and Poison typing is a wonderful combination, but to find it before you even hit the first major town is phenomenal, and it can easily become a mainstay of your team. And if it's in the Ultra games, you can also grab an extra Ekans and an Island Scan Bulbasaur on Melee, so that is a great start, especially since you'll resist Hala's fighting Pokémon. But the second island gives you the amazing Salandit with a Fire-type addition just before the Grass-type trial, so that's handy as well, with some more Island Scan pickups available too. Now, while there are a few other teammates to acquire, there aren't as many as we've already seen past the midway point, but the makeup is still pretty great even against Poison's weaknesses. And it's not as important to the overall story and gameplay, but this is the first time that you could catch anything close to a Poison-type legendary with Nihilego and Naganadel, so that'll bolster your team a whole lot by the end. And it leaves this paradise of Alola as one of the most magnificent places to spread pollutants everywhere. But of course, you knew this was coming. The Kanto region may have been disregarded in these videos, but we have finally reached their time to shine with the Poison type. As we know, in Gen 1, Poison was the most common type of all, so there's plenty to choose from. But also, the distribution is pretty solid too. First of all, this is the only region in which you can pick a Poison-type starter right from the very beginning. Honestly, you could just use this one Poison-type to solo most of the game if you wanted. And really, if it weren't here, Brock would be almost impossible with just a Weedle and one of the Nidorans. But then as you go, you can get 3 more Pokemon before the second gym, one of them being another Grass-type, so Starmie Psychic is really nothing to worry about. And like in Sinnoh, you seem to get just what you need before each critical juncture, like say a ghost to beat Sabrina, or a jellyfish to tackle Blaine or Giovanni. Not to mention, this is easily the highest concentration of pure poison types around, each one of them having their own strengths to offer the team. And of course, Nidoqueen and Nidoking are some of the best Pokémon to ever exist. Their amazing designs are one thing, but they have a great type pairing, an extraordinary move pool with lots of coverage, and plenty of power to back it up, with their ground being a key in taking down at least 3 of the late game threats. And then your Venusaur could probably mop up the rest after that. So it may have taken us a while to get here, but the Kanto region has finally reached its full potential as the best place to use a poison-type team. I don't really even know if this is up for debate, but let me know all of your toxic thoughts down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!